Bhartaji, shall we wait for few minutes?
कान्ताय कल्याणगुणैकधाम्ने नवद्युनाथ प्रतिमप्रभाय नारायणायाखिलकारणाय श्रीप्राणनाथाय नमस्करोमि देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुं शागीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि लेशतः लक्ष्मीनारायणं नत्वा पूर्णबोधां गुरूनपि कुर्मः श्रीकृष्णगीताया भाष्यादितार्थसङ्ग्रहम् हरि ओम्. Good morning, Shubhodaya, Happy New Year. Uh, this is the Pratipadartha session. We are looking at sloka number 3 of the Bhagavad-Gita now. We have completed till the previous session. We have completed till the second sloka of the second chapter. When we click on the link, the web link that is attached to the room, we will go to the directly to the shloka. Now, this web link is quite useful for the purpose of what we try to do. When we look into this website, we can click on the web link. The shloka goes like this. Klaivyam magamah partha naitatvayupapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvotishtha parantapa. This is the third shloka of the Bhagavad-Gita, second chapter. Primarily following up from the previous shloka. We will quickly do a recap also. But when we look into this shloka, Klaivyam magamah partha naitatvayupapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvotishtha parantapa. When we click on this web link is quite useful because when we click on that and then scroll down a little bit, we do see a section called the Padacheda. The Padacheda is primarily the breakdown. Whatever has been condensed in a shloka, word by word, they break it down. So we will see what are the words in the shloka. Klaivyam, ma, sma, gamaha, partha, na, etat, naitat. So na plus etat becomes naitat. That's the vriddhi sandhi. Na etat twai upapadyate. Twai upapadyate becomes twai upapadyate. It's a sandhi called the yana sandhi. So there is a sandhi happening. So there are a couple of sandhis here. Kshudram, hridaya daurbalyam, tyaktva uttishtha becomes tyaktvotishtha. So there is something called the guna sandhi happening. Tyaktva uttishtha, tyaktvotishtha parantapa. So these are the different words. Now, the good thing about this website is that it also gives us, the jumbling of the words when we do the anagrammatical order. Because in a shloka, the words can be put in any order, right? That's the common rule that we all, most of us are aware of. In Sanskrit, the words can be put in any order. The meanings do not change. But nonetheless, when we speak the sentences, there are certain ways in which there are certain positions we give for the subject. There are certain positions we give for the object, the predicate, the verb, and things like that. So Anvaya, the section slightly above the Padacheda, is the Anvaya in this website. Anvaya is primarily rejumbling the words back in their prose order. So when we read them in the prose order, all the Padacheda, right, after the split of the words, when we put them back in the prose order, it sounds like what is given in Anvaya. Hey Partha, Klaibyam Mahatmagamaha. So the line is the yati, the full stop, right? Klaibyam Mahatmagamaha. Etat Twayi na upapadyati. Hey Parantapa, Shudram Hridya Daurbalyam Tyaktva Uttishtha. Right? What kind of a meaning do we get out of this statement that we read in Samskrita? Further, when we come a little above in this link, there is a section called the dictionary, right? Shloka, dictionary, analysis, references, highlight. So this is a quite handy website for any kind of a self-study. So when you go a little on top and then read the dictionary, when we read the dictionary, Hey Partha, O Partha, Klaibyam mas magamaha, to impotency yield not, don't come, right? Mas magamaha means do not come or do not go, do not yield to impotency, Klaibyam. Etat twayi na upapadyate. This in you, in thee, is not fitting, is not befitting. Etat twayi na upapadyate. He parantapa. Parantapati iti parantapa. The scourger of the foes. Parantapati. Like, tapati, tapa is basically torture, right? The scourge of the foes. Para. Like, of the enemies. He parantapa, which is Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, who's now called as Parantapa, he's reminding, you torturing your enemies. Hey Parantapa, hey spouse of the food. Shudram Hridaya Daurbalyam, the paltry, ignoble weakness of the heart, the faint-heartedness of the heart. Hridaya Daurbalyam. Shudram, which is the ignoble. Tyaktva, giving up, having given up. Chodkar, like in Hindi, Chodkar, Chodke. Tyaktva, Uttishta, get up. Utjao, like Uttishta, stand up. Okay. So, what kind of interpretation is this? When we click on the shloka again, when we scroll down a little bit, let us see Sri Aurobindo's interpretation. Hey Partha, like fall not from the virility of the fighter and the hero, O Partha. Right? So basically, there is a little bit of opinion being added when we move on from the word by word translation. When we look into the summary, O Partha, it is not fitting in you, it is not befitting you or your stature because you are a Pandava, you are a great Dhananjaya. There are many great adjectives being used for Arjuna. It is not befitting you. Shake off this paltry faint-heartedness and arise, O scourge of thine enemy. The English is quite funny, but yeah, it's nice. It's very polished English. So Klaibya. Klaibya is, what is the word by word understanding of the word Klaibya? The impotency, right? So see, impotency is one word in English, but impotency is also, it is the dispenser of Purusha. Like it is the opposite of Purusha, or it is the diluter of Purusha. Why is Purusha important? Let's quickly recap where we stopped, right? When we look into the previous week, we, we heard the first verse of Bhagavan, right? The first verse of Bhagavan is the second shloka. The previous shloka is the first verse of Bhagavan, where he says, like, Kutastva Kashmalamidam. Where are you getting this nonsense idea? Like, this Kashmala, this tainted thought. Kutastva Kashmalamidam. Vishame Samupastitam. In this hour of peril, in this hour of inflection, like, in this 11th hour. Samupastitam. Vishame Samup, it is seated in Vishama, like, in this peril. Anarya Jushtam, Aswargyam, Akirtikaram, Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, what you are trying to do, what you are about to do now is Anarya Jushta. It is it is like Anarya. Anarya is a non-Arya. And we spoke about that briefly. What is Arya? Who is an Arya? Arya is a Karya Sadhaka, one who delivers his Karya, Kartavya, Kartavyam Acharet Karyam, Akartavyam Anacharet, Tishtati Prakrutachare, Arya iti Vaismrita is something that we heard. Right? So, one who constantly delivers his Kartavya, Dharma, one who always does Dharma Palana, is Arya Justa. What is Svargapara? Who is Asvargya? Asvargya is basically who is not elevating himself higher enough. The whole purpose of life is being as a contrary to what he negates, what he warns Arjuna of. He is trying to say, don't be that, right? Uh, don't be Anarya Justa, don't be Asvargya Para, don't be Akirtikara, right? These are the things you don't be. Like, don't you, what you are about to do is Anarya Justa, Asvargya, Akirtikara, and he is indirectly implied, don't be Anarya Justa, which means be Arya Justa, be Kartavya Sadhaka, right? Follow your dharma all the time. Don't be Asvargyapara, which means be Swargapara. Always try to elevate yourself higher and higher. Don't be Akirtikara, which means be Kirtikara, which means always try to get a good name for yourself. I mean, when we understand this, right? Basically, Krishna in the previous shloka has given the marker as to the purpose of a human life, right? Or for all of us, the primary purpose of our life should be we all need to aspire to be Aryas. We all need to elevate ourselves, which is Swargapara. And we all need to earn a very good name for ourselves, which is Kirtikara. We all need to have. Now, when we look into the Dharma Shastras, I mean, this is not a Dharma Shastra discussion, but when we look into the Dharma Shastras, they primarily help us understand the Purusharthas from this context. The Purusharthas, whatever we have, our purpose of life is understood to be Purusharthas, right? The Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, through the four ashramas of Balya, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha. So, multiple of these things are primarily designed in such a way that we maximize our living, right? We get the best out of the life that we have got. That's the whole purpose of the Sanatana Dharma, right? The entire purpose behind this: how do we live a maximum life? How do we get the most fulfilling life? That's the core principle behind everything. And to that extent, Bhagavad Gita is a yoga shastra which will help us achieve that. If we have a problem, and you know what the problems are, we'll come to them also a little later. But there are problems that will stop us from achieving that. One of the problems is the kliva, which is the apurusha, which is the non-purushatva. Kliba is also the napumsaka, right? Impotency. That's one of the meanings. Like when we say napumsaka linga, we also say kliba linga. Like in Sanskrit, we do say that. Right? So kliba or klaidya is thing that will stop me from achieving my purushartha, very simply put. That's why he didn't use the word shanda. Shanda is another word for impotency, right? Of napumsaka. There is another word for shanda. And same way, Mahasi Vyasa has used the word shanda. Nastri, na shando, na puman, na jantuhu. He has used it when we describe in some parts of Bhagavata. He uses the word shanda. Not that Vedavyasa does not use it, but here very very selectively Vedavyasa Maharshi has used the word kliva because it is anti-purushartha, right? So Klaivyamma Smagamaha Partha, don't become like a Klaivya, don't become somebody who has been inflicted with kliva, which is impotency that will pull you down from achieving your purushartha. Na etat tvayi upapadyati. This is not befitting you, O Parantapa, because you are a Parantapa. Okay, you have tortured so many of your enemies in the past. This is not befitting you. Shudram Hridaya Daurvalyam, this unnecessary, this weak, faint-hearted, Anarya, not a very good kind of a looking, faint-heartedness. Tyaktva Uttishta Parantapa, give up this and stand up. Stand up means dot dot dot, implied meaning is get up and fight. Right? Get up and fight. Because he basically broke down and sat in the chariot, right? So basically Krishna is telling, don't do that. Don't surrender. Don't fall off. Get up. Get up means implying get up and fight. So very beautifully, see, this is the two shlokas. One thing that we need to understand is there are only two shlokas that Bhagavan spoke at the beginning of the Bhagavad-Gita. The first shloka, which is Utastva Kashmanamidam Vishame Samapastitam Manarya Justamaswargyam Makirtikaram Arjuna. That's the second shloka of the second chapter. And the second shloka that Bhagavan spoke is Klaivyam Masmagamah Partha Naitattvayupapadyate Shudram Hridaya Daurvalya Yaktvo Tishta Parantapa. Two shlokas. Now, beautifully, couple of things to note here. One is that it is the primary essence of the entire Bhagavad Gita. The entire essence of Bhagavad Gita, the way we understand from these two shlokas is, if anybody has to understand what is our purpose of life, our purpose of life has to be constantly be Arya Justa, Swargapara, Kirtikara. Always try to be a Kartavya Sadhaka, always somebody who keeps on delivering his duties. And then be Swargapara, which means constantly aspire to elevate yourself higher and higher and higher. That is the Swargapara. The basic definition of Swarga is the top of the maze, Swarati Giyati. To keep on aspiring to be higher and reach higher and higher and higher. And then Kirtikara, because name alone, the Kirti alone is Shashvata. Like nothing else remains. After the body is given up by the Atma, it is Bharata, the name only remains. Even today we speak about Arjuna. He is eternal name. Arjuna is an eternal name, right? Names like Bhartrihari, names like Bhaskaracharya, names like, so many great names like Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya. These are all eternal names because they have attained that kirti, right? Infamy is also a problem. Like there's a permanent naraka also in that. Like name like Duryodhana. For generations to generations, he will be known as bad people, right? So name alone. So the core purpose of life has been very beautifully defined in terms of what we need to achieve and how do we need to achieve that. Remove the klaiva, remove the kliva, remove the thing that will hamper you from delivering on the purushartha. This is the core message of the Bhagavad Gita, number one. Number two, Krishna does not speak unnecessarily. This is something that we need to understand. Everything that is being spoken in the Bhagavad Gita that we will see later, the 700 odd shlokas, everything has been spoken with a purpose, not unnecessary. There is no time. We need to understand this is happening in the Yuddha Bhumi, right? There is already the conches are blown, the war signal has been signaled, and war perhaps has started. People are already exchanging fires and the arrows and the weaponry, right? That is already happening. And in that, there is no time to talk esoteric stuff. Unnecessary, not just esoteric, unnecessary, out of context esoteric stuff. In just two shlokas, Bhagavad Gita got over, right? If Arjuna were to get it, he will get it with a, it's like a tight slap on the face. Don't be like a Napumsak. Don't have that don't have that Kliba. Kliba is also Napumsak while also an anti-Purusha. A tight slap on the face without wasting time, without using too much of unnecessary words. Very, very well measured, the complete essence of Bhagavad Gita delivered in two shlokas. If Arjuna were to be stable, he would get up and then fight, resume the fight. Right? Tyaktva uttishta parantapa. This is something that we need to bear in mind. Whenever we see the last words of Bhagavad-Vacha henceforth, okay, there are many 16 more times we will see Bhagavad-Vacha concluding and Arjuna beginning again. Right? So there is an Arjuna Uvacha. So now we will get into the tandem of the conversation. Okay, from this point onward, it will be a series of Arjuna Uvacha and Bhagavan Uvacha. Right? Sometimes Arjuna keeps on listening to about 71, 70, 60, 50 slokas before he can ask another question, right? Or before he can make another point. Okay, point number one is that now from now on, we will see the series of Arjuna Uvacha, Bhagavan Uvacha. And every time the Bhagavan Uvacha concludes, Bhagavan Uvacha stops, we can then safely assume that he is actually implying another statement which is Tyaktva Tishta Parantapa. Give up all this and get up and fight. That is an implied message that we need to understand. Okay, so a couple of things very carefully at the conclusion of the first Bhagavan Vacha series, which is maybe one Bhagavad Gita, right? The entire message is given. Somebody who understands it can actually get up and fight now. Okay, Bhagavan laid out very clearly the rules of life, the purusharthas of life, the primary purpose of everyone's life, which is become Arya Justa, which means be Kartavya Sadhakas, and once we become Kartavya Sadhakas, once we are able to deliver on our duties very diligently, become Swargapara within those. Okay, find your own best realization of your full potential. Keep on going higher and higher and higher. Once we become duty bound, once we become Kartavya Sadhakas, keep on going higher and higher and higher within that. Be Swargapara, achieve greater and greater potential that we all are blessed with. That's the second part of the journey. And the third part of the journey is attain a very good kirti, very good name for all of us. That's the final sloka. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanuttara, Tatra Shrihi Vijayah Bhuti. Okay, that is primarily all about kirti. Attaining the best possible name that we all can. We all need to be remembered with, right? That's the whole purpose. Today it's the other way around. Like, today we are forced to say that whoever departs, talk good about them. Okay, but they should earn that. We all should earn that. The society is kind enough; they will all talk good about us once we pass out, right? Once we pass away. But we need to also make sure that we earn the decent enough name before that happens. So that's a clear thing. And then fourth point is that to attain that, to achieve that, get rid of the kliba, get rid of the klaibyatana, which is the number one hampering agent towards achieving the purushartha. Very beautifully, he put down these nice points. Now we will move on to Arjuna Uvacha, shloka number 4. Right? One section of Bhagavad Gita is over now. So the link is given on the room. We have pinned the link. Now this website is a useful website, and we may not agree with everything that is given, but nonetheless it's a very good reference material. So we will use it because it's got a very good structure. So when we move on to the next shloka, Arjuna Uvacha. So Arjuna now has more questions. Let's see what he has. Katham Katham Bhishmamaham Sankhye Dronam cha Madhusudana Ishubhih Pratiyotyami Pujarha Varisudana. Katham, so he's actually asking a question. Katham Bhishmamaham Sankhye Dronam cha Madhusudana Ishubhih Pratiyotyami Pujarha Varisudana. So when we look into this sloka, scroll down a little bit on the web link, and when we see the Padacheda is basically again split of the words, right? Arjuna Uvacha, that becomes Arjuna Uvacha. So aha goes missing, the Visarga goes missing, or the Lopasand goes missing. Katham Bhishmam Aham Bhishmamaham, not a Sandhi but just a Samuha. Right? The words are coming together. It's like an alloy making, amalgamation. Right? Bhishmamaham Sankhye Dronam cha Madhusudana Ishubhih Pratiyotsyami Puja Arhau Pujarhau. Not a Sandhi, but we will count it as a Sandhi. Puja Arhau Arisudana Pujarha Varisudana. So there is a slight Sandhi happening. Pujarhau Arisudana Pujarha Varisudana. It is a va that comes in terms of au and au, and others from the happening there. Let us see how the Anvaya sounds. Just above the Padacheda, we have something called the Anvaya, which is the prose order for this shloka. Arjuna Uvacha, He Madhusudana, Bhishmam Dronam cha Sankhye Ishubhihi Katham Aham Pratiyotsyami. He Arisudana, Etau, in bracket, which is implied, Etau, Pujarho, Maya Pujarho. Maya can also be added there. Etau, Maya Pujarho. You can include that. Let us see what it means when we come a little above and look into the dictionary, Shloka, dictionary, analysis, highlight, right? So let's click on the dictionary. Hey Madhusudana. Oh Madhusudana. So Madhusudana is again, I think Pravina ji gave a very beautiful description of it, right? So Madhu iti daityam sudayati. Madhu Sudana, the one who slays a demon called Madhu. Okay, so that's one meaning. There are multiple other meanings also. We will see. Okay, so Hey Madhusudana, oh Madhusudana, Bhishmam Dronam cha. Bhishma and Drona, so like to Bhishma and Drona, because Dronam Bhishma is Dvitiya Vibhakti. To Bhishma and Drona, Sankhye in the battle, like Sankhya, right? We have been using the word Sankhya, battle for Sena. It is very enumerated kind of a battlefield. It's not just a random battlefield. We know there is 11 Akshauhini Sainya on that side, 7 on the side of Arjuna. So it's all very, very nicely enumerated, right? So Sankhya, it's all driven through the Sankhya. So in the Sankhya, in the battle, okay, Ishubhihi, from the arrows or with the arrows, like Maha Ishu Asa, Parama Ishu Asa, we saw that issue, right? So Ishubhihi, through the arrows, with the weapons. Katham, how? Aham pratiyotsyami, how do I retaliate? How do I strike back? Okay, how shall I strike back? Arisudana, I think again, Arisudana is again, Arina Sudayati. Ari is basically, one Ari is basically the Shatru, and Arina through the Chakra. Okay, Arina Sudayati. Again, how the slayer of enemies, a slayer of the foes. And Arina, Ari cannot be used for everyone. Right? Arisudana, Arina Sudeti. The one who slays the Shatru with the Chakra, Arina, is basically Krishna, Sudarshana Chakra, right? So not everyone has the Chakra. So Arisudana, very beautiful word. So Arisudana, slayer of the foes. Eto Maya Pujarho, they are worthy of worship by me. Right? Maya is by me. We can include that also. So now, I mean, Bhagavan Sri Krishna is giving an instruction what to do. Arjuna is acting funny. So now he goes on. First of all, he went a little too funny. The first chapter we saw how illogically he was building the logical construct and goes on and on and on. Very long messaging, right? About 17, 18 slokas, he went on to a kind of a monologue and very, very illogically phrased all of that. Okay, so now he goes a little more funnier. We'll see how. So the meaning of this is when we come back to the shloka link on the top and then come down to see Sri Aurobindo's interpretation. Arjuna said, how, Madhusudana, shall I strike Bhishma and Drona with weapons in the battle? They who are worthy of worship, O slayer of foes. Right? So now he's answering back. Okay, Pratyuttara. Right? So he's not taking the message from Krishna directly. And this is more fun here, we will see how. So basically now Arjuna gets into the Pratyuttara, argument mode with Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And that is the funny part. So we will see the next shloka. How can I retaliate? How do I strike back? Pratiyotsyami. How do I strike back? Ishubhihi, through the arrows at Bhishma and Drona. Oh, Madhusudana, oh, Arisudana. Right? So, two Sudanas, Madhum Sudeti and Arin Sudeti. He is Krishna. Hey Krishna, how do I strike back Drona and Bhishma through my arrows in this battlefield? They are worthy of worship. They are great and Pitamaha Acharya, right? So we'll look at what shloka number 5 says now. Guru Nahatva Himahanubhavan Shreyo Bhoktum Bhaikshamapi Haloke Hatvarthakaman to Guru Nihaiva Bhunjiya Bhogan Rudhira Pradigdhan. So Guru Nahatva Himahanubhavan Shreyo Bhoktum Bhaikshamapi Haloke Hatvarthakaman to Guru Nihaiva Bhunjiya Bhogan Rudhira Pradigdhan. We'll come down. Scroll down a little bit, you'll see the Padacheda. Okay, Gurun, Ahatva, Gurun Ahatva, Ahatva, he, Mahanubhavan, Shreya Bhoktum, Shreyo Bhoktum. So Shreya Bhoktum is a Visarga Sandhi. Shreyo Bhoktum, Bhaiksham, Api, Api Iha, Api Iha. This is a Savarna Dirgha, Dirgha Sandhi. Api Iha, Loke. Hatva Arthakaman, Hatvarthakaman. Arthakamantu, Arthakamanstu. There is a Sakara Agama. It's a new sound that gets imported. Kamantu, Kamanstu. Sakara comes like from nowhere, comes in there. Sa comes. To Gurun Iha, Eva, Ihaiva. There's a Vriddhi Sandhi like Ekaika, Iha, Eva, Ihaiva. Bhunjiya, Bhogan, Rudhira, Pradigdhan. These are the words. So when we look into the Anvaya, just above that, which is the prose order, right? It continues, O Arisudana, O Madhusudana, right? The Sambodhana still remains, that address to Krishna still remains. He continues, Mahanubhava Gurun Ahatva Iha Loke Bhaikshyamati Bhoktum Shreyahati Gurun Hatva Iha Rudira Pradigdhan Arthakaman Bhogan Evatu Bunjiya. So now he's getting logical again in his own way, right? Not logic, but they're all logical. Let's see the more meaning of this. What it implies. We heard the prose order. What it means when we click on the dictionary link, we will see that. Oh Madhusudana, oh Arisudana, oh Krishna, oh slayer of Madhu, oh slayer of enemies. The Sambodhana still remains, right? Mahanubhava Gurun Ahatva. The high-souled gurus ko slay kar kar. Slaying these high-souled gurus. In English, we have to change the position slightly. The word, the subject, the predicate, and things like that. But in Hindi, it will exactly fit the same order. महानुभाव गुरुओं को मार के हत्या करके okay ना हत्या करके ahत्या is by slaying not no, by slaying not iha loke is lok mein in this world bhaikshyamapi for with the arms also like through the begging also okay bhoktum to survive to enjoy to live right to make a living okay he indeed for gurun hatva okay by killing the guru iha here in this word rudhira pradigdham blood stained arthakaman all the artha and the kama right all the the wealth and the sense enjoyment bhoga all the enjoyment all the bhoga are basically consuming right consuming all the pleasures of this world okay eva tu bhunjiya okay only alone to after all bhunjiya I should taste. So what he's telling is that better not to kill them and take up begging for living. Let's click back on the shloka and come down to hear Aurobindo's interpretation. It says better in this world to live even on alms than to slay these high-souled gurus. Okay, slaying these gurus, I will or I should or I shall taste of blood-stained enjoyments even in this world. I think the English is a little complicated. What it primarily means is in this world, rather than killing, by not killing, it is better for me to take up begging for livelihood. Because whatever pleasures I gain by killing them means I will end up winning the war. After winning the war, I will get the kingdom. In kingdom, I will have the Bhogaishwarya, right? All the pleasures of life. Okay. But this pleasures, whatever I get by acquiring the kingdom, which will come only after killing these people, will be permanently stained in the blood, which is basically guru blood. Now he is getting into the logical arguments, right? So Arthakaman, right? Arthakaman is also very important. Hatva Arthakaman. Now Arthakaman is very, very important because it is not this personal greed that Arjuna is talking about. Because see, when we look at the motivation behind why Bhishma and Drona, these two names are also very important, right? These two people, we spoke about that. Before the start of the day, early morning when they perform the Nityanusthana, both of them were performing their Japat Karma, the Nityanusthana, right? They both were offering prayers like, Jayostu Pandaputrana. That's the word that they were uttering every day, according to what we heard from Sanjaya's words in his explanation to the Dhritarashtra in some of the early stages of this Bhishma Parva, like where he's explaining how Bhishma Bhishmacharya fell off, while explaining that. Right? So they were very dear to the Pandaputras. Like, they wanted the victory, but they were sticking to their artha. Artha is the Purushartha. They had their duty to fulfill, right? So we spoke about that, Arya Justa, Swargapara, Kirtikara. We spoke about that, right? So these people, both Bhishma and Drona, they were very, very loyal to their artha. I think Bhishmacharya explains this very nicely to Yudhishthira later in the Shanti Parva. Arthasya Purusho Dasu, Dasaspartho na Kasyachit. So, Purusha is always subservient to the Artha. It's always like that. So, that is where I think, Hatva Artha Kamantu, for the sake of the Artha. Okay, now Artha need not be selfish. Even if he is fighting the Dharma Yuddha, which is what has been propped up as, right? This entire Kurukshetra war has been propped up as a Dharma Yuddha. You're not doing it for you, yourself, but you're doing it for the sake of your Purushartha, as your duty. You have to fulfill your duty. So Arjuna's question is actually a little too complicated, right? When we hear all these logical statements from Arjuna, while we make fun of him right now, that because we are hearing it from Sanjaya's words, and Sanjaya's last description of Arjuna is Vishidantam, the crybaby, right? So we go through that, but Arjuna is very, very strong in his argument, right? When he brings in the concept of, Atva Artha Kamantu. So even if I'm trying to fulfill my duty, I will get the kingdom, right? And I will get the kingdom, and once I start eating them, even for the basic necessity, that food, that enjoyment will be permanently tainted with the blood. It is blood stained forever because I have killed my Guru Acharya. And see, in fact, Bhishmacharya also says the same thing to Yudhishthira, right? It is Satyam Maharaja, Paddos Nyarthena Kauravaha. I am not bound to Kaurava, but I am bound to my Artha. So for Yudhishthira, for Dharmaraja, because he becomes Maharaja at that time, so after winning the war, right? Shanti Parva is after winning the war. So at that time, when Bhishma is giving this update, or he's explaining Dharmaraja the tenets of Dharma, the fine tenets of Dharma. So at that time, Bhishmacharya explains this that he is also bound by his Artha, not to the Kaurava. Like, I'm not serving Kaurava here, but I'm serving my own Artha, my own Purushartha, my own duties. So that's the explanation that we hear. So this word from Arjuna is actually very, very profound when he uses Atva Artha Kamantu Gurun Iha Eva Gunyiya Bhoga Vichar Udira Pradigna, completely stained in the blood. Okay, so nonetheless, I mean, we know for the fact that these are not logical, but Arjuna's words are very, very powerful. Okay, so much so that I think when we look at it a little more in a detailed way, the way Arjuna falls off at the end of the first chapter, and again he's going to fall off at the end of some 8 slokas in the second chapter, he's going to fall off. If one tiny portion of the entire 7 Akshauhini Sainya were to hear or were to be aware of Arjuna's position, that could have created a ripple effect and would have created a wildfire kind of a spread of message that Arjuna is down. And if Arjuna is down, remember in the first chapter, Pandava army was entirely Bhima Arjuna Sama. These Arjuna is 50% of the might of the Pandava army. The other 50% might being Bhima. Right? Together between them, everything is Bhima Arjuna Sama. Right? So Arjuna, one half of Pandava might falling down will completely demotivate the entire army. Right? They would have lost the war even before the first arrow was being shot because of the situation of Arjuna. It's not just losing Arjuna; it is losing 50% of the war. Right? So the significance is very high, and his state is also very, very complicated. It's not an easy situation that he is expressing. Okay, get up and fight and do your duty, because he is giving very logical in his own way, very highly logical substantiation through scriptural quotations. Like, he's not just shooting something out of thin air. We heard that when he spoke about Lupta Pindo the Kriya, the Prayashita Kriya, how strongly Narake Niyatam Vasaha in the first chapter. We have heard that with all of this Kulakshaya, Kuladosha, and things like that, we will be permanently relegated to Naraka. That is what we have heard in the Smritis and the Shrutis in the Shastra. Like, that is what Arjuna is quoting. So all of these are very, very strong. So that makes it even more important that this could have been resolved only by Bhagavan. If it were to be normal mortals, we would have been like Jai Ho Arjuna, and we would have surrendered just like how he is doing. Like, we would have rallied behind him. Okay, it actually takes a special force to come and change the direction of the wave, right? Completely in the opposite direction, and not only change it in the opposite direction, propel him further up. that he delivered his Purushartha like never before. Even today we speak about Arjuna, right? So we will see that later, but I think some of the words are very intelligently used here. So we will move on. I think we are getting too deep into this. We will move on to the next shloka, shloka number 6. Shloka number 6 is very interesting. I think, again, all of these are very interesting. Right? Stop calling it that way. So basically, he's telling, I don't want, how can I fight the Guru and Pitamaha? They are worthy of my worship in the previous shloka, shloka number 4, right? They are worthy of, how can I retaliate back to them with my arrow? Rather than killing them, without killing them, it's better for me to take up to the woods and do sannyas and do bhiksha, do begging for my livelihood. Because if I get any, whatever through the arthakama, whatever through my duties, whatever kingdom I get, okay, it will be completely tainted in the blood. It will be completely stained in the blood. Very logical, right? So shloka number 6. Shloka number 6 says, न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयो यद्वा जयेम यदि वानो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्तेव स्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः. Very beautiful, right? So न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयो यद्वा जयेम यदि वानो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्तेव स्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः. So when you scroll down a little bit on the web page, you will see Padacheda. Right? Padacheda says Na cha etat, cha etat becomes chaitat, chaitat vidmaha, chaitat vidmaha, t becomes vidmaha, katarat nah, katarannaha. So anunasika. Katarat nah, katarannaha. Katarat katarannaha gariyah, kataranno gariyah. So visarga guna. Right? Visarga goes to a like slight mod. Gariyah yat gariyo yat. There is another visarga. Okay, yat va yadva. There is another jashtva sandhi. Yadva. Yadva jayema yadi va naha jayeyuhu. Naha jayeyuhu. No jayeyuhu. So visarga becomes guna. Visarga guna sandhi. Yaneva hatvana jijivishamaha. Jijivishamaha plus te. Jijivishamaste. Jijivishamaste. Te avasthitaha. Te avasthitaha. Akara goes hiding and takes the form of the avagraha, the esmat. Te avasthitaha, te avasthitaha. Pramukhe bharta rashtraha. So this is the padacheta. You will see how the anvaya sounds. Okay, O Madhusudana, O Arisudana remains, right? That's the sambodhana, that's the call out, right? Etatcha na vidmaha, na katarat gariyaha, yat va vayam jayema, yadi va te naha jayeyuhu. Te and vayam are implied because of the word construct. Yadi va naha jayeyu. Yan hatvana jijivishamaha te eva dhartarashtraha pramukhe avasthitaha. Right? So pramukhe avasthitaha, you will see the reference. But what does it mean? We spoke of quite a few lines in Samskrita. Let us see what it means. When you click on the dictionary on the top, scroll up again. On the top, you have shloka, dictionary, analysis, references, highlight. Click on dictionary. It says, Etachana vidmaha. This also not, we don't know this also. I don't know this also. Okay, now, it need not be we know, vidmaha, but it can be I know. Okay. Nachaita vidmaha, etachana vidmaha. We don't even know this. What do we don't know? Na katarat gariyah. Okay, naha is for us. Okay, asmakam naha. Asmakam and naha are the same. Okay, so naha for us, katarat gariyah for us, which is better, which is gariyah, which is shreyas, which is better. Yatva jayema, that we win, we conquer them, that we win. Jayama is we win or we conquer them. That yadva jayema, that we win is better for me. Yadiva naha jayayuhu, yadiva te naha jayayuhu, or they conquer us, or we get conquered by them. Yet, or even, what is better? I don't know. Now I'm getting lost. Right? Now this guy's, one thing about Arjuna in this entire thing is the sincerity. He's expressing himself as honestly as he can. That is why perhaps it's called the Vishada Yoga. Even in the Vishada, there is a yoga, right? Only this kind of a Vishada can perhaps propel us to a yoga or upaya, a way out. But nonetheless, let's look at the honesty. I don't know what is better, that I win over them or they win over us. Okay. Yan hatva na jijivishamaha. By killing whom, by slaying whom, we will not be able to live. We will not wish to live. Right? We should not care to live. Na jijivishamaha, jivitum ichchamaha, like jijivishamaha, that we should not care to live. They eva, they only, they alone, Dhartarashtraha Pramukhe, in among the sons of Dhritarashtra. Dhartarashtra, Dhritarashtrasya Apathyam Kumam, right? So sons of Dhritarashtra are Dhartarashtraha. Multiple of them are Dhartarashtraha. They eva Dhartarashtraha Pramukhe, they alone among the front of the Dhritarashtra's army, or sons of Dhritarashtra's army. We saw that, right? The first words of Krishna, though it was not called as Bhagavan Vacha, we saw that somewhere around sloka number 26, 27 in the first chapter, you know, he says that, Bhishma Drona Pramukataha, with Bhishma Drona as the fronting people of the entire Dhritarashtra's army. We heard that. So they are in the front. These two old people, the Guru and the Pitamaha, Bhishma Drona, right? These are the two people. These two people are Dhartashtraha Pramukhe Eva Avastitaha. They are in the front of the Dhritarashtra's son's army. Right? So this is let's see what it means when it comes to Sri Aurobindo interpretation. Come back to the shloka and scroll down a little bit. See, Aurobindo's interpretation is, nor do I know which for us is better, that we conquer them or they conquer us. Before us stand the Dhritarashtrans, whom having slain, we should not care to live. Okay. Before us stand the Dhritarashtrians. Okay, this is funny. But these two people, Bhishma, because it's the central of this entire discussion is Bhishma and Drona. Okay. Pramukhe Dhartarashtraha Avastitaha. So they are standing in the forefront of the entire Dhritarashtra's army. I think that's a better way of understanding this. Instead of the entire Dhritarashtra's army, because he is not too keen on not slaying the other people. Right? They are okay to be killed. But the entire compassion is coming out of Bhishma Drona. How can I shoot back at them? Better not to kill them and go and take the begging arm. Without whom I wouldn't want to wish and take up this kingdom. See, a couple of things that are happening here in Arjuna, not to give an opinion, but we need to notice that, he's jumping the gun and already looking at the future that he is winning the war. Okay, he's already counting the results of the action, right? One mistake. He's not looking at the current action. He's looking at future that he's already won. I don't know whether to call it ahankara, whatever, but he's already counting that he will win the war by killing them. He's already gone into the future. He's gone much ahead of where he is supposed to be, which is nitya, which is the current time. That is one. Second thing is that attachment, without whom I wouldn't want to live. I wouldn't want to have this kingdom. I wouldn't want to, reign over the entire kingdom, right? He wants the kingdom with these people around, all his bandhus around. So that's another thing. That attachment is also, Yaneva Hatvana Jijivishamaha, by killing whom I will not wish to live, I will not care to live. Te eva avastitaha. They only are assembled. Dhartarashtraha Pramukhe, among the forefront of the Kaurava army. Okay, that's a quick interpretation. If there are anybody interested in joining and having a quick interjection here, please do ping for the mic access. The moderators would love to have you here. But nonetheless, we will move on in the due course. We are now getting to shloka number 7 in the website pinned to the room. You can look into that. Okay, so shloka number 7 reads like this. Karpanyadoshopahatas svabhavah पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यां निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्. So, कार्पण्यदोषोपहतस्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यां निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्. Very beautiful. Again, we will see a lot of sincerity from Arjuna. And these slokas are very beautiful. Arjuna has been very, very sincere in terms of expressing himself. Such honesty is perhaps, again I repeat, is perhaps the reason why this entire Vishada is also a yoga. Right? So Padacheda. So Padacheda goes Karpanya Dosha Upahata Doshopahata. Dosha Upahata Doshopahata Upahata Swabhavaha Pritchami Tvam Dharma Sammudha Chetaha Yat Shreya, Yat Shreya. So there is a sandhi again. Yat Shreya, Yat Shreya, Shreya Yat Shreya Syat Nishchitam Syan Nishchitam. Ta becomes Anunachika. Syat Nishchitam Syan Nishchitam Bruhi Tat Me Tan Me. Again, Anunachika. Tat Me Tan Me. Shishya Te Shishyate. Te Aham Te Ham. Aham Shadi Mam Tvam Prapannam. So these are the breakdown with a few summaries here and there. We will see how the prose order sounds now. Anvaya. कार्पण्य दोष उपहत स्वभावः धर्म सम्मूढ़ चेताः त्वां पृच्छामि त्वाम् अहं कार्पण्य दोष उपहत स्वभावः धर्म सम्मूढ़ चेताः त्वां पृच्छामि यत् श्रेयः मया यत् श्रेयः स्यात् तत् मे निश्चितं ब्रूहि अहं ते शिष्यः त्वां प्रपन्नं मां शाधि. Let us see. I mean, something nice it sounded, but let us see what it means. When we go back again, scroll up again, and click on the link or the dictionary. Okay. So, aham, we have used the word aham in the fourth word, right? Aham, karpanya doshopahata svabhavah, dharma sammudha chetah, tvam pruchhami. So, karpanya doshopahata svabhavah. So, karpanya dosha. Okay, karpanya dosha is miserly, cowardly, poorness of the spirit, right? Poorness of spirit that has smitten away from one his true nature. Okay, Karpanya dosha upahata. Upahata. Hata is basically killed. Upahata is basically somebody who's been abducted or subdued or something like that. So upahata. Hata is killed. Upahata. So Karpanya doshena upahata swabhavaha. Karpanya dosha is what? Kripanasva dosha. Kripanasva is cowardly, miserly. That these two people, the old people, right? These two people are very dear to him, and he is dear to them. Killing them should be easy. So the thing that he perhaps is thinking is that killing them is easy, and killing them is like bulldozing over an easy pushover target because they will be happy to sacrifice their lives for him. I mean, he knows he's very dear to both of them. Arjuna is very dear to both of them. Both Arjuna or both Dronacharya and Bhishmacharya, they adore Arjuna, right? Among all the Pandavas, he is the most adorable guy for all of them, right? So he knows that killing them is easy, killing them will be a pushover, and doing that will be an act of cowardice. Now again, see, he's thinking forward, and he's counting the results of the army, and he's underestimating the commitment of both Dronacharya and Bhishmacharya. Bhishmacharya, the person who slays 10,000 strength of army on a daily basis, he's underestimating him to give up weakly to Arjuna because he's very dear to them. So Karpanya dosha, Kripanatva. Kripana is basically can be looked at as miserly behavior, cowardly behavior, okay, or poorness of the spirit. Like I'm not being very strong enough in my spirit because the dosha that comes from Kripanatva, I'm having, and I'm being abducted by that dosha, Uparata, Subhavaha. I'm having that kind of a nature right now in me. I feel I have this Swabhava which is subdued, Upahata, by the Karpanya dosha, by the dosha of the cowardice, miserly attitude. Dharma Sammuda Cheta, my chetas, my consciousness is Dharma Sammuda. I am unable to know. I am unable to figure out what is my dharma. I am losing it. Because in the previous shloka we saw this, right? He is expressing very honestly, confessing, I don't know what is good, whether to conquer them or get conquered by them. Right? So Dharma Sammuda Cheta. So again, in all this confusion, very loud thinking, very expressive thinking, he's also being very, very honest. I don't know what to do. Right? Dharma Sammuda Cheta Tvam, to you, to thee. Pruchhami, I ask. Like Pruchhami, Aham Pruchhami, I ask. Yat Shreyaha, what is Shreyaha? What is better? Which is better? Syat, maybe. Syat is maybe, like to be. Tat me, that to me. Nishchitam Bruhi, definitively, decisively tell me. Aham te shishya, I am your shishya, I am your disciple. Tvam prapannam mam, like to you prapannam, like one who has surrendered, prapaddi, right? Sharanam prapaddi, we keep hearing that. Prapannam, tvam prapannam mam shati, like I surrender unto you. You please enlighten me, mam shati, you please guide me. Right? So now in this sloka, more honesty comes, but the can also read a little bit of the folly of Arjuna's mind. He's gone into the future. He's underestimating the opponent's commitment to their dharma, and he's counting the results that I have won the war. They will they will be killed by me, and that is killing will happen because they will weakly surrender unto me, right? Because they all understand the amount of adharma that has been meted out to us. So they will obviously, show lack of resistance, and I will be able to easily kill them. And through that, I will acquire the karpanya dosha. And in this kind of a upahata swabhava, in this kind of a subdued attitude, I am being dharma bewildered. I am unable to understand my duty. Okay, now I am your disciple, Krishna. I surrender unto you. You please guide me. You please tell me what is better. So Arjuna, he understands that there is something wrong going on. He's been very, very expressive. He's been very deep in his thoughts. He's quite strong in his thoughts also because he's not an ordinary person. See, we are all not even close to Arjuna in terms of the logical construct that he can bring to this entire Vishada. But he's also honest to the extent where he's been expressive about all these things, and then being the right thing about Arjuna is that he knows what to do. Even in this entire dire strait of distress, he knows what to do, which is ask Krishna. Unlike see, we saw the nervousness panning out in Duryodhana, but Duryodhana's behavior when it comes to facing that anxiety, facing the nervousness, is not surrender. He had a choice. He had an option to surrender to Dronacharya, Bhishmacharya. But what he does, he runs up to Dronacharya and goes on ranting and raving about Bhishmacharya. Right? There is one extreme case where there is the Vishada. He perhaps knows the Vishada too, but he goes on aggravating his own situation by not surrendering, but rather do the opposite, which is go on ranting and raving. But this person has a deeper Vishada. Arjuna has a deeper Vishada, but knows the right thing to do, which is cause I have a problem now. I'm asking you what to do. Krishna, help me. So he do. So the Vishada being a yoga perhaps is coming from another angle. Not only him being sincere and honest, also being knowing what to do. To that extent, I think a lot of Vyakhyanakaras, a lot of commentators, a lot of Bhashakaras call him an Aparoksha Jnani. Okay, he knows the right thing. Like, he has a direct knowledge of the Lord. He has a direct knowledge of the Bhagavan. Okay, so he has the realization of the God. So he's coming to Krishna. Okay, but yeah, there are some lapses in Arjuna. We can discuss them some other way. But at least he is doing the right thing. Right? So that is what we kind of gather out of this. We will see what Aurobindo interpretation says. Come back to Shloka, come down and read the Sri Aurobindo's interpretation. It is poorness of spirit that has smitten away from me my nature, my heroic nature. My whole consciousness is bewildered in its view of dharma, right and wrong. I ask you, thee, which may be the better Shreyaskara, that tell me decisively. Okay, Nishchitam Bruhi. I take refuge as a disciple with you. Okay, Shishasteham. Okay, Mam Prapannam. Mam Shadhi. Okay, enlighten me. Right? So you will see the next shloka. So this is basically what happens in the shloka number 7. We will see the last of the words from Arjuna before we get into a lengthy Upadesha from Bhagavan in terms of the real Bhagavad-Gita. Right? So the last shloka, shloka number 8, it says, Nahi prapashyami mamapanutyadyachokamuchoshanamindriyanam avapya bhuma vasapatna vruddham rajyam suranam apichadhipatyam. So, nahi prapashyami mamapanudyad yachokamuchoshanam indriyanam avapya bhuma vasapatna vruddham rajyam suranam apichadhipatyam. Let's see the padacheda. Scroll down a little bit. Nahi prapashyami mama apanudyat mamapanudyat mamapanudyat yat mamapanudyad yat. So ta becomes the yat shokam yat chokam yat shokam becomes yat chokam uchoshanam indriyanam avapya bhumau asapatnam bhuma vasapatnam. So very very similar to puja, pujarha varisudana, pujarha arisudana, pujarha varisudana. Similarly, there's a va comes agama. Bhumau asapatnam bhuma ajyam suranam api cha adhipatyam. Cha adhipatyam becomes cha adhipatyam. So these are the sandhis and the padacheda. you will see the Anvaya, the same broken words or the Chedat words when they are arranged back in the prose order. It sounds like what given in the Anvaya, slightly above the Padacheda. He bhumau asapatnam riddham rajyam suranam adhipatyam cha avapya api na prapashyami yat mama indriyanam uchchoshanam shokam apanudya. So he is now surrendering, circling back to where we started. Let us see what it all means. When we click on the dictionary above, right, just next to the shloka link on the top, you will see shloka, dictionary, analysis, highlight. Okay, we will click on dictionary. He, for or indeed, bhumau on earth, asapatnam, okay, asapatnam, unrivaled, riddham, richness, right, riddham, flourish, riddham, rajyam, the kingdom, suranam adhipatyam, of the gods also adhipatya, the sovereignty or the kingship, adhipatyam, okay, rulership of the suranam, cha avapya, having gotten, having attained, okay, cha avapya, and also attained. Api, even if, okay, na prapashyami, I do not see, I see not. Yet, okay, that mama, mine, indriyana muchoshanam, the complete drying up of the senses. Okay, we heard this, right? Drying up the senses is basically losing the juice of the senses. He spoke about that, when he started describing the shoka. He started explaining his physical qualities. Sidanti mama gatrani, mukham cha parichushyati. My face is getting dried up. Like no, vepatuscha sharire me. I have turbulence inside my body. So he starts explaining, right? So his indriyas are completely dried up. Means his indriya, sense organs, have completely lost their juice, lost their essence. Like, indriyanam uchchoshanam, shokam, and the sorrow, apanudya, shall thrust away or remove. Like, can be removed, can be overcome. So what he's telling is, even if I really don't know, like, what can help me take away my current state that I'm experiencing through my senses, which are completely dried up, which have completely lost their juice, mojo, right? So we will see the interpretation from Sri Aurobindo. Come back to the shloka link and then scroll down a little bit under the shloka. And Sri Aurobindo's interpretation says, I see not what shall thrust from me the sorrow that dries up the senses. Okay, what shall remove my sorrow that is dried up my senses, or that has come through along with the senses being dried up. Even if I should attain the richness and the unrivaled kingdom of the earth, or even the sovereignty of the God. Forget about the kingdom of the Lord. Earth, even if I were to get the kingdom of the Lord, I really don't know what will give me, okay, greatness, or what shall remove my sorrows. Okay, can be understood in another way that help me, that even if I were to, between the two, what will help me remove the senses? I really don't know. Okay, whether it is winning the kingdom or whether it's winning the Swargaloka, right? Because he's or see, Arjuna is the Surana Adipati already. He's the Indra Amsha at one level. He's the son of Indra. Son means the avatars are basically the Punarjanma, right? The progeny is also the avatar. As much as we call Hanuman as the Vayu avatar, he is the Vayu son also. As much as Bhima is called the son of Vayu, he's also the Vayu avatar. So similarly, they have, because they carry the Amsha of Vayu. They have the Vayu Amsha, so the respective deities Amsha. So so this is basically a nice poetic interplay by Vyasa Maharshi. That I don't know whether I become the king of the Indra Loka, which already he is. That I'll go back away from my duty here. I'm done with my duty indirectly, right? Subconsciously, it's like I'm done with my duty. I will go there. Let me go there, because at the end of the first chapter, we hear him saying that in this moment of my disarmament, in this moment of reactionlessness, let somebody from the Dhartarashtra side, from the Kaurava side, kill me. That is better for me. So he's like, I really don't know what will remove my sorrow that has completely dried up my senses, whether it's the unrivaled kingdom on earth, or whether it's a sovereignty back in the Suraloka, which is getting back to my previous avatar, which is my original Swarupa, which is the Indra Swarupa. That can be another interpretation that's been drawn. Okay, I mean just a playing of the words, right? So Suraloka, Surendra is basically Indra, which is Arjuna's Mula Swarupa, which is Surendra. So that is the quick thing. So that is ends as sloka number 8. Any interjection, people can come forward. We will move on. You can ask for mic access and stop me. I'm not looking at the room. Okay. So now we'll go back to Sanjaya Uvacha. So now Sanjaya is speaking. Right? Sanjaya Uvacha. So sloka number 9. We are in sloka number 9. Sanjaya Uvacha. एवमुक्त्वा ऋषिकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तप न योत्स्य इति गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः तो एवमुक्त्वा ऋषिकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तपः न योत्स्य इति गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः. Let us scroll down a little bit and look at the Padacheda. Sanjaya Uvacha becomes Sanjaya Uvacha. Evam Uktva Rishikesham Gudakeshah Parantapah Na Yotsye iti. Na Yotsye iti becomes Na Yotsya iti. Yotsye iti Govindam Uktva Tushneem Babhuvaha. Only one Sandhi. But you will see how the Anvaya sounds. Anvaya sounds like this, just about. Sanjaya Uvacha परन्तपः गुडाकेशः ऋषिकेशम् एवम् उक्त्वा न योत्स्ये इति ह गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः. Right? So, yachokam right? So that's the following that. Now Sanjay is telling, okay, parantapah gudakeshaha rishikesham evam uktva na yotsye iti ha govindam uktva tushneem babhuva. What does it mean? Go above, scroll up a little bit and click on dictionary. When you click on dictionary, you will get to see parantapah gudakeshaha. So Arjuna, who's a parantapa, who's a torturer of the enemy, right? The terror of the enemies, terror of the foes. And Gudakesha, who's a controller of the sleep, who's overcome the sleep. These are the two words that again we use. Okay, very important. I think we will have more sessions with Pravina Bhagini to get to know deeper insights of this, Nama, names being taken. But Rishikesham, to Rishikesha, which is basically, see, Indriyas are being dried up. I don't know what will remove this sorrow, which is dried up my senses. So somebody has to bring back the mojo in Arjuna's senses. That X factor has to be brought. The juice has to be filled again. So Rishikesha, Rishikana Misha, right? So he's the controller of the senses. He's the lord of the senses, not just controller of the senses. Krishna is the lord of the senses. The senses obey him, right? They don't go berserk with him, right? So Rishikesham, Evam Uktva, having thus spoken, Na Yotsye, I will not fight. Iti, thus, ha, clearly, Govindam Uktva, to Govinda, Gam Vindati to Govinda. We heard about that also. Right? No? Gam can be Veda, the knowledge, or the land and the cow. So here we can see knowledge because Dharma Sammoda Cheta, right? He's lost his understanding of what is Dharma, what is right and wrong. So Govindam. So our Sanjaya's use of words are very nice. Rishikesha because Arjuna's senses need to be restored, and Govinda because his knowledge has to be restored. So we will see both. Govindam to Govinda having thus spoken, Tushni Bahuva, he became very silent. Okay, so this is the thing. Na Yotsi, I will not fight. So what is the Aurobindo interpretation of this? Okay, when we click on the shloka, link to something called the shloka, dictionary shloka, come down, Sri Aurobindo's interpretation. We scroll down, Sri Aurobindo's interpretation. Sanjaya said, Gudakesha, the terror of foes, which is Arjuna, having thus spoken to Hrishikesha, said to him, I will not fight, na yotsi, and became silent. I think it's very, very simple. We'll move on to shloka number 10. Shloka number 10 reads like this. Again, Sanjaya is giving update to Dhritarashtra, right? Tamuvacha Hrishikesha Prahasaniva Bharata Senayor Bhayor Madhye Vishidantamidam Vachaha. So Tamuvacha Hrishikesha Prahasaniva Bharata Senayor Bhayor Madhye Vishidantam Idam Vachaha. So we hear the word Vishidantam again. You will see the Padacheda first. Padacheda says Tam Uvacha Hrishikesha Prahasanniva. Prahasan Iva, Prahasan Iva. So Prahasan Iva, there is a Dakara extra Akara gets added. Ottuna, Prahasanniva. Okay. Prahasanniva Bharata. Senayoho Ubhayoho, Senayor Ubhayoho. So Visarga becomes Rakara. Senayor Ubhayoho, Madhye Ubhayor Madhye. One more Rakara. So two Repa, Visarga Repa. Madhye. Vishidantam Idam Vachaha. So this is the Padacheta, couple of pandis. You will see how the Anvaya sounds. He Bharata. This is referring to Dhritarashtra, right? Sanjay is referring to Dhritarashtra. He Bharata. Rishikeshaha. Ubhayoho Senayoho Madhye. Vishidantam Tam. Arjunam is in bracket. Right? Vishidantam Tam. Prahasan Iva. Idam Vachaha Uvacha. What does it mean? We'll click on the dictionary. He Bharata, O descendant of Bharata, which is Bharata Vamshi, Dhritarashtra, Raja Dhritarashtra, Rishikesha, Rishikana Nisha, Sri Krishna, the controller of the senses, right? The master of the senses, the lord of the senses. Ubhayoho Senayoho Madhye, in between these two armies. Sorry. Vishidantam Tam Arjunam, Vishidantam, again the same word, the crybaby, this crying guy, the depressed guy. We are all as good as a lost performance, right? Sudakesha, Parantapa, Dhananjaya, all of these are past bygone, Pandava. Now he's Vishidantam. He's Vishidantam, Tam Arjunam, Prahasanniva, it's a Mandahasa, it's a small smile. Prahasanniva. So Hasan is smile, Prahasan, right? Very bright smile. Pra is basically Prakashanena. Like, Pra is a very beautiful Upasarga. When it gets added, there's a lot of brightness that we can expect around. And brightness can be allegorical, right? You don't need to go literal with that. Some people might get offended when you try to say this. Right? So, Prahasanniva, with a lot of brightness and a smile. Mandahasa, when we see that in a lot of these murtis also. Right? Mandahasa is a very key distinctive feature of many, many murtis of the Bhagavan. Prahasanniva, Idam Vachaha Uvacha. These words he spoke. Right? So now Bhagavan Uvacha comes, which is the Bhagavad-Gita, the bigger Bhagavad-Gita. Now we will hear a bigger Bhagavad-Gita. So basically Sanjay is concluding to Dhritarashtra, hey Dhritarashtra, hey Raja, O Bharata, this Rishikesha, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, who is the Lord of all the senses, Ubhayoho Senayoho Madhye. See, this is the third time Vedavyasa Maharshi is telling us that a Senayoho Ubhayoho Madhye. See, this is Itiha-asa, this is history, this is what happened. And this is the third time Vedavyasa Maharshi is telling this happened, this entire Bhagavad Gita happened in the battlefield between the two sides. Okay, there is no two things about it. A lot of us get into this unnecessary the doubts and discussions and things like that, right? So never get into such discussion. This is what it is, right? So Senayoho Ubhayoho Madhye. So let us see what Aurobindo interpretation is. Okay, to him, okay, Tam, to him, Tam, thus depressed, Vishidantam. Vishidantam can be the adjective, can be the noun also, right? She is the crybaby now, Vishidantam. Okay, and discouraged. Okay, Rishikesha, Sri Krishna, smiling as it were, Prahasanniva, O Bharata, O Dhritarashtra, spoke these words between the two armies. Now we will see the Bhagavad Gita. Official Bhagavad Gita starts from this verse onwards, sloka number 11. For a lot of great acharyas like Shankara Bhashya starts from second chapter. Shankara Bhashya doesn't have among Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva. These are the three Jagadgurus that we popularly call as the ultimate authority, right? Uttara Mimamsa. These are the three matas that we see. Only Ramanuja Bhashya has little bit of explanation to the first chapter that we understand as the Dhritarashtra Uvacha onward. He calls Ramanujacharya, he calls Dhritarashtra Sarvat Prambhata. Like he's blind from all different angles. So these are some of the things. Not the scope for today's discussion, but just a quick input that this is where the official Bhagavad Gita starts from a many Acharya Paddhatis. Okay, so Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, sloka number 11. On the web link, you can click on that. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Ashochan Vashochastvam. So when we say this, the previous word that we heard from Sanjaya is Prahasandiva, with a smiling face. Now, any one of you that try chanting, right? Try chanting with a smile on your face. You will see a very beautiful effect, the way it starts sounding. Forget about how it sounds to others, to yourself, the way your voice will sound to yourself. try chanting these lines onward, not just one, all the shlokas, with a small smile on your face. And they say, many people say that, when people speak with a smile, the smile can be heard. That's the only time smile can be heard, not seen. When people speak with a smile on their face, that smile can be heard. So we will see that how it sounds. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासूनगतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पंडिताः. Right? अशोच्यान् अन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासून् अगतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पंडिताः. So this is the shloka. Let us see how the Paracheda looks like, how the breakdown of the verse looks like. Under the shloka, when you scroll down a little bit, you have a section called Paracheda. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, no sandhi, Ashocyan, Anvashochaha, Tvam, Anvashochastvam, Prajnavada cha, Prajnavadanscha, Prajnavadancha, Prajnavadancha. I think there is a no. Vadancha, Vadanscha. So it's no there. Not Vadacha, Vadanscha. Prajnavadancha, Bhashasi, Gatasoon, Agatasooncha, Agatasoonscha. So wherever nu and cha comes, there is a su that gets added. Sorry. Agatasooncha, na anushocanti, panditaha. Right? This is the Paracheda. Now, you will see what the Anvaya sounds like. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Tvam, which is implied. Okay, Tvam is implied. He's just brought in. Ashocyan Anvashochaha, Prajna Vadan cha Bhashase, Panditaha Gatasoon Agatasoon cha na Anushochanti. What kind of an impression does it give? You will click on the dictionary link on the top. You will see dictionary, right? Dictionary. Tvam, you, which is the implied verb. And Anvaya has brought in this verb. Ashocyan Anvashochan. Okay. Anvashocha is like, that should not be grieved for. You are grieving. You are grieved. You're crying for people who do not deserve to be grieved upon. You're crying for something that doesn't deserve to be grieved upon. You're grieving for something that shouldn't be grieved upon. Ashocyan Anvashocha Tvam. Okay. Prajnavadan cha bhashate. Prajnavadan, the words of wisdom also you're speakest. Right? You're speaking with a lot of words of wisdom also. Okay. Panditaha, the panditas, the wise enlightened men. Gatasoon, Agatasoon cha, for the dead. Gatasoon is what is gone, not really dead. But we can say what is gone is what is the dead, right? So Gatasoon is what is gone. Agatasoon, for not that is gone, which is basically the one that remains or one that is living. So Gatasoon for the dead, Agatasoon for the living. Primarily, what goes and what doesn't go. Gatasoon is what goes, and Agatasoon what doesn't go. Because na Gatasoon is Agatasoon. So Gatasoon is what goes, Agatasoon one that doesn't go. Cha also and. Na Anushochanti, do not mourn or do not grieve or do not cry. Okay, this is the first verse of Bhagavad-Gita. Now we'll see a couple of things, right? Tvam Ashocyan Anvashochaha. You are crying for something that is not worthy of a cry. See, this is now we will see from here onward. If you really want to study Bhagavad-Gita, we know for the fact that Krishna does not speak unnecessarily. We saw that he closed Bhagavad-Gita with just 2 shlokas. He didn't want to go to the 3rd shloka. So he gave his first message to Arjuna, get up and fight for. With a slap on the face. Klaibyam mas magma. We heard that, right? Shloka number 3 and 4. So Bhagavan doesn't speak anything unnecessarily. What he's doing is basically dissecting Arjuna's state from the time he got into that attachment and starts grieving, one by one. The first thing that we hear is that Sanjay, shloka number 28, 29 of the first chapter. Okay, Kripaya Paraya Vishnu Vishidantam Vidamvacha. When Arjuna speaks, before Arjuna Uvacha in shloka number 28, 29, the Sanjay's description is that he is filled with cries. Vishidantam. Ashrupurna Kulekshana, that's the description of Arjuna by Sanjaya. That his eyes are filled with tears, which means somebody is crying, right? The first message of Bhagavad-Gita, the bigger Bhagavad-Gita from Krishna is don't cry. Ashocyan Anvashocastam. You're crying. See, there are many instances in Upanishads also. Like, when the son is crying and entering the house, the mother stops the child at the door and says, don't enter in the crying phase. Stop the crying and then enter the house. Because a Brahmin's house, nobody cries. Right? So these are some of the descriptions. And so crying is not a sign of a Pandita. The Pandita is an enlightened person, right? So we will see perhaps a little more of it. If you guys are using this link any which ways, I will perhaps give another link. We can quickly look into this in a while. Basically, I had tweeted a few days ago a little more details about Pandita as a word, right? So somebody had used the thread reader app and kind of condensed it in one place. But nonetheless, we will see the Aurobindo webpage for now, and we'll come to this pinned link a little while. So you are crying for something that doesn't deserve to be cried upon. Right? Stop crying. Okay, so that's the first thing that he says. Okay, stop crying. Like, don't cry. Now, this is very, very logical, right? Whenever we see an accident on the road, we first let the person come back to the stability of their consciousness, right? So, first is if they are crying, madly, vehemently, we let that emotion die down completely, and then before we can talk sense to them, we expect them to come back to their senses, right? So, a person who's crying very profusely is not a sign of somebody in their consciousness. So, crying is not good, right? Crying is a sign of lost consciousness. So, you are crying for something that doesn't deserve to be cried upon. Ashocyan anvashochahatvam. Prajna vadam cha bhashate. You are talking like the words of wisdom. You're speaking the words of wisdom. So partly true because Krishna was quoted a few instances of like hatva artha kamantu, which is basically yes, you're talking the words of wisdom partly but twisting them. Then he spoke about apatayanaha, and then you are also quoting scriptures about prashita karma, lupta pindotaka kriyaha, narake niyatam vataha. Okay, you're talking these words of wisdom, but we know for the fact that prahasandiva is basically mocking, right? You're speaking like a fool. So words of wisdom can also be you speak like a wisdom with prajna vadan iva, you're speaking like a wise man. It can be a sarcastic comment. No, but Krishna cannot be sarcastic. So the same thing can be broken down with a sandhi. You can imagine a sandhi there. Prajna vadan can be prajna avadan. You're speaking like somebody who's lost his prajna. See, somebody who cries, the example of the accident side, right? Somebody who's vehemently crying, profusely crying, has primarily lost the consciousness, which then makes it more logical to say that no, it's not prajna vadan iva, prajna avadan iva, because prajna is something that needs to be restored. What is prajna? There is a pra there, and we know pra is prakashanena, right? So very brightness, and jna is jnana. So prakasheti tat jnana, the one that enlightens me or one that restores me back to my consciousness is prajna, right? So prajna, and so that actual consciousness is something that we all expect. Suppose, for example, somebody is profusely crying that they didn't get the desired marks in the exam. We want to be with them because we're scared because today people take some extreme steps, right? In absolute manda buddhi, they take some extreme steps, jabbing their fingers, cutting their skin. Somebody gets a love rejection. Somebody proposes, sends a love letter, and the girl throws that letter, smashes that the rose was completely smashed. Now this guy gets into some lost prajna. He's profusely crying and things like that. So, and then he says, "Oh, Devdas Manunga." Now whatever they say, we have to use it with a pinch of salt because they will be speaking like a prajna avada. We have to, whatever they cry, the cry is not worthy of the cry. We all know that prajna need to be restored, which means they are speaking prajna avada. They are speaking against to the prajna, right? So they need to be restored back. So looking at this word can be looked at in two, three different ways. One is prajna vada iva, like you're speaking the words of wisdom, not so accurately, but prajna avada iva, you are speaking like somebody who's lost the consciousness. Hey, bhashate, gatasun agatasun cha Panditaha na anushocanti. For what goes and what doesn't go, for death and living, for loss and profit, Panditaha na anushocanti. Panditas do not cry. Okay, Panditas don't cry. What's that for Arjuna? See, Pandita, Panda Abhavat. Panda is Buddhi, intellect. Pandu, Panda Abhavat. They both are rooted in Panda, which is Buddhi. So, this is not the only instance. There are few more instances till the fifth chapter where Krishna uses, three, four instances where Krishna uses the same reference of Pandita to refer to Arjuna. So, he is telling Arjuna, you are a Pandita, right? You are supposed to be a Pandita. Not only Krishna referring to Arjuna as Pandita, even Vidura refers to Dhritarashtra as a Pandita. He, while explaining Dhritarashtra his Raja Dharma in something called the Vidura Niti, right? He goes on to explain the qualities of a Pandita. That is what I have pinned to the link. When you look at that, right? When you look at that link, I think this is a beautiful one. Let's look at that link, right? If you look at this link, first one, so there are 16 slokas in the Viduruniti from which we can pick up what a Pandita is, who the Pandita is. Because it's all intellect, right? The firm intellect, Chitadhi, Chitabuddhi, like the Dhi is the Buddhi, right? The intellect. And Panda is also that. So we call people as Pande, Panda, Panda, Pandita. All of these are rooted in the same root called the intellect, Panda. Right? So we'll see. आत्मज्ञानम समारंभ स्थितिक्षा धर्म नित्यता यमर्थान नापकर्षन्ति सवै पंडित उच्यते. One who self-aware, enthusiastic, got ability to bear suffering, always adheres to dharma and isn't attracted to temptations. He is called a pandita. Let's look at the second one. Nishevate prashastani ninditani na sevate Anastikah Shraddhadhana Etat Pandita Lakshanam, performing admirable actions, never does anything that's criticized, not being a non-believer and being devoted are the signs or the characteristics of a Pandita. Krodho Harshascha Darpascha Srihi Stabdho Manyamanita Yamartha Napakarshanti Savai Pandita Uchyate, for whom anger, joy, pride, shame, obstinacy, or a false sense of superiority won't corrupt and lure away into any temptations, he is called a Pandita. Right? Yasya krityam na jananti, mantram va mantritam pare, kritamevasya jananti, savai pandita uchyati. One whose actions are known to others only when well accomplished, until then no signs of it, right? Only when well accomplished, people will get to know the action. Not like, I am going to do. My actions will speak, right? And not when it is being merely intended upon or being planned for undertaking. He is known as a Pandita. So beautiful, right? So, yasya krityam na vignanti, shita mushna bhayam ratihi, samruddhi rasamruddhirva, savai pandita uchyati, whose actions aren't interrupted because of heat, cold, fear, or love, or by extremes of richness and poverty. That person is known as a Pandita. Look at this. I mean, look at this entire thing very carefully. There's a lot to learn just by knowing the definitions of a Pandita and such a measured way of Krishna using that word called Pandita. So, 7 out of 17. You see, Yasya samsarini prajna dharmartha vanuvartate kamadartha vrinite yah savai pandita uchyati, whose worldly wisdom is always following dharma and artha, and who abandons the sensual desire, he is called a Pandita. You know, Yatha Shakti Chikirshanti, Yatha Shakti Chakurvate, Nakinchidava Manyante, Naraha Pandita Buddhyate, Naraha Pandita Buddhaya. So people with an intellect of a Pandita who are like a Pandita, people who are like a Pandita, they are aspiring for what is possible within their potential, working towards the same without ever worrying about vanity, are the people with the intellect of a Pandita. Like, no? So, Chipram Vijanati Chiram Shrunoti, Vijnaya Chatam Bhajatena Kamat, Nasam Prushto Vipayumte Parate, Tat Prajnanam Pratamam Panditasya. Prajna again. So, Prajna of a Pandita is known to be the one who learns quickly, listens attentively, understands fully and doesn't let out emotions, never speaks irrelevant nor tenders an unsolicited advice. These are the foremost traits of a Pandita, right? Na prapyamabhi vanchanti, nashtam nechanti shochitum, आपत्सु च न मुह्यन्ति नराः पंडित बुद्धयः. Never aspiring for the unattainable, nor grieving for what's lost, and never fearing in danger are the people with the intellect of a Pandita. Look at this, right? The 16 shlokas perhaps are complete Bhagavad-Gita in itself. Okay. Nischitya yah prakramati. Nischitya yah prakramati. Nantar vasati karmanaha. Abandhya kado vashyatma savai pandita uchyati. Who takes up work within firm certainty, works relentlessly till the end, and doesn't waste time. He is called a pandita. Okay. Arya karmani rajyante, bhuti karmani kurvate, hitam cha nabhyasuyanti, pandita bharatarshava. Oh Bharatarshava, oh great among the Bharata Shrestha, is Dhritarashtra. Vidura giving, this is Vidura Niti, right? Vidura giving all the advice to Dhritarashtra. Always passionate about noble deeds, always doing good work, wishing for the well-being without finding faults in others, are the Pandita. Oh Bharata, oh Bharatarshava. Okay, let's look at the next one, 13 out of 17. Na drishyatma sammane, navamanane tapyate. Okay, gango hrida iva kshobhyo yassa pandita uchyate. Who doesn't get over-elated when praised, not get flustered when insulted, and always energetic like the Ganga. Okay, he is called a Pandita. Okay, Tattvajnah sarva bhutanam, yogajnah sarva karmanam, upayajnyo manushyanam, narah pandita uchyate. Very beautiful, very intelligent. Tattvajnah, one who understands the tattva of sarva bhutanam, all the living beings. See, tattva again is a very loaded word. We'll come to that in the next session maybe. We'll talk a little more about tattva in the next session. Because I think we will see a shloka where Krishna uses in Bhagavad-Gita for the first time the word tattva. We will come to the elaboration of that. Okay. It says, Tattvajnah sarva bhutana, yogajnah sarva karmana. Okay, he's dexterous of all activities. He's a yogajna, yogam janati iti yogajnah, tattvam janati iti tattvajnah. So he understands the tattva of all the living beings. He understands the yoga or the upaya, like the way out, the dexterity of all karmana, of all activities. Upayajnah manushyana. He can find solution to all human problems. Naraha Pandita Uchyate. He is called a Pandita. Right? Pravruttava Chitrakatha. Okay, this is beautiful. Pravruttava Chitrakatha Uhavan Pratibhanavan. Okay, Ashu Granthasya Vaktacha Yassa Pandita Uchyate. One who is fluent in his speech, has unique choice of words, argues well and brilliantly, and can elucidate essence of all literary works with felicity. He is called a Pandita. Okay. Shrutam prajnanugam yasya prajna chaiva shrutanugam. Atanbhin narya maryadaha panditakyam labhetasaha. This is even more beautiful. One whose learning is guided by his consciousness, and his consciousness is molded by his knowledge. The consciousness and knowledge need to piggyback on each other. Okay, and never crosses the limits of decency. He will be called as he will get the fame of a Pandita. Okay, he is called a Pandita, but Panditakyam labhetasaha. He will gain the fame of a Pandita. Artham Mahantam Asadya Vidyam Aishwaryamevava. Artham Maha. Okay, I'm sorry. Artham Mahantam Asadya Vidyam Aishwaryamevava. Vicharatya samudhoyah yassa pandita uchyate. Vicharatya samunnadho. Okay. Vicharatya samunnadaha yassa pandita uchyate. One who remains grounded even after achieving great wealth, prosperity, status, and education. That person is called a Pandita. Okay. Artham Mahantam Asadya. Okay. Artham Mahantam Asadya. vidya vaishwaryamevava vicharatyam vicharatya vicharatya sam unnadhohu yassa pandita uchyate. So, uchyate. Like, one who remains grounded, rooted even after achieving great wealth, prosperity, status, and education. That guy is a pandita. So look at these 16 slokas. I think the word pandita, what a pandava, what a panda, abhavat, right? The one who is rooted in panda, intellect, one who is firm in intellect. We will see the qualities of a person who's very strong in intellect coming in these 16 slokas of the Viduraniti, where, I mean, in different areas of Viduraniti we hear these 16 slokas, but this is the message Vidura is giving to Dhritarashtra, and this is the word that Pandita means. But unfortunately, when we look into English translations, we hear a very watered down version, right? We hear a very lighter version of the Pandita, which is a learned person, which is true, which is not the entire essence of Pandita. So basically, the first word of the bigger Bhagavad Gita, the first words of Bhagavan in the bigger Bhagavad Gita, the shloka number 11 is highly, highly loaded. Don't cry, get back to the Avadan Iva or Prajna Vadan Iva. Prajna Avadan Iva is more relevant. I think but the first Acharya who came up with Prajna Avadan is Acharya Madhva. So until then, all the Anvayas were looking at it as Prajna Vadan Iva. And so Acharya Madhva said one possibility of this looking at it. So Acharya Madhva came up with two granthas. One is called the Gita Bhashya and one is called the Gita Tathparya Nirnaya. In Gita Tathparya Nirnaya, he calls it as you know, avada. In Gita Bhasha, he calls it as vada. So he looks at it both ways. And both are possible. But more relevant is avada. Prajna avada, because you are lost in prajna. And then that makes it more imperative that whenever we talk to somebody, whenever somebody is grieving, when somebody has lost it, whether it's because of a love failure or examination result failure or appraisal failure, people end up taking to some extreme steps. One extreme step could be resigning from the organization. One extreme step could be committing unnecessary things, cutting the skin. Multiple things people do. Basically, steps that are completely driven out of dharma sammuda chetana, like completely lost the intellect. Unlike Arjuna, pray that we all get that sincerity, awareness, and the aparoksha jnana of Arjuna of what to do when we are in distress, when we are in deep sorrow, which is what Arjuna did was he surrendered to the Lord. Okay, we sometimes may not do that so effectively, and this is perhaps why the Vishada itself is yoga, right? We spoke about that. But coming back to the first words of our Krishna, Ashotyanadva Shochastam, don't cry, is the first message. Prajna Vadancha Bhashase, you are speaking like you have lost the intellect, you have lost the prajna, you have lost the consciousness. Prakasayati tat jnanaviti prajna, right? So you have lost that thing that enlightens you. Okay, Pandita, you are a Pandita because of what you have inherited as Panduputra. Panditaha gatasoon agatasoon cha na anushochanti. They do not cry. Okay, this is the first aspect of Bhagavad-Gita, the first message of Bhagavad-Gita. Don't cry. If you want to improve any situation, stop crying. Okay, understand what needs to be done. Reconcile to the situation. Stop crying. Let us see what's the next step. That's the first message. I think we will conclude in terms of today's discussion. If there are any questions, if there are any thoughts to share, the mic access is open. Please to come up on the stage. If not, we will conclude in a couple of minutes.